martini, cream margarita, with an extra shot of Patron in it.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the 67th episode of the MMA podcast. We have Michelle Ould on the line. We're going to get right into that interview, and we have a bunch to talk about as well. Maybe the fight of the year in Eddie Alvarez versus Michael Chandler 2 at Bellator 106. We also have 2 UFC cards coming up in the week. We have the Fight for the Troops card coming up on Wednesday. We also have Fight Night 32 coming up on Saturday, which will feature Vitor Belfort versus Dan Henderson. We had a busy week in mixed martial arts. We have this UFC 169 card that's going to have the unification bantamweight fight, the featherweight title fight. It's going to be a doozy. It's going to be a great podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Let's do it. Here we go.
You're listening to the MMA Podcast!
Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to the MMA Podcast. It is November 4th, 2013. We got a lot to talk about. We got a lot of people to introduce. But first and foremost, we have former Bellator fighter, well-known women's mixed martial arts fighter, Michelle Ould on the line. How are you doing, Michelle?
I'm good, man. Pretty good. I'm out here by a fire at a restaurant so I could get away from all the loudness.
Nice.
It's actually pretty cozy. I get to get away from everybody.
You like the Lenny Hart drop there?
Yeah. But, had a hard day at the gym today. I'm just exhausted.
For sure, yeah. I was actually going to lead off. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes with us tonight. Walk us through an average day in the life of Michelle Ould.
Well, I don't really think anything about my life is average. And I try really hard to stick to a good schedule with the kids and training and stuff. But especially with kids, there's always something that they forget, or you know what I mean? It's always just hectic and chaos and yelling and come on, hurry up, you can't be late, and you know what I mean? So lots of yelling. And on an average day, but it's all in. I'm kind of the mom and the dad, so it's herding cats with these guys, and so we wake up. I always wake the kids up at 7, take them to school, and one of them is super easy, does everything on his own. The other one's the total opposite, and it's just he's just high maintenance. And then after that, I go and get a little bit of coffee, take my, morning supplements or whatever, and talk myself into the brutality of our pro practices at 10:30 every Monday through Friday. So then we have that, and then come home and shower, and usually clean and do laundry, all that other crap. I clean up after a lot of people, and then gotta go and pick the kids up shortly afterwards, and then usually go straight to a kids practice, and I usually practice or do another class, simultaneously with them. When we're usually tonight, Mondays are the hardest. We have 2-a-days for the kids because they have wrestling also on Mondays and Wednesday nights, so they do jiu-jitsu and wrestling, and my training will usually not end until 8 o'clock either. So that's Monday through Friday. And then, Saturday, usually do something light to break a sweat. But, you're trying to recover so that we can, because we always start Mondays and off with hard sparring. So we're usually trying to recover over the weekends. So that's pretty much how it goes.
Jesus Christ, talk about a busy schedule. I asked this...
Yeah.
I ask this a lot, but I think it's especially relevant for female fighters. Punching someone else in the face certainly isn't the societal norm for women in our country. How did you first get involved with mixed martial arts and combat sports?
I don't know. I've just always kind of had it in me. I just I wouldn't call myself a tomboy growing up, but it was just something was always funny, amusing, intriguing about doing anything that the boys could do. I'm I just saw myself as an equal, Like, I always was doing more push-ups, more pull-ups, like, in every sort of, like, competition, like, physically-wise and gym class and everything. That just really intrigued me. And, you know, I mean, I wish I would have gotten into wrestling in high school, but my parents weren't very stable. You know, I think that would have, you know, done a lot of things different. Things would have gone a lot different for me, so I had to kind of play catch-up. I went and had kids and stuff instead, but I started dating and then married my ex-husband. You know, I dated him like from 15 on. He was a junior Olympian boxer, and then I started training because I was always getting in fights and stuff at school. Usually not my beef. I was always like, you know, sticking up for someone that was getting picked on or something like that, and that's kind of what I started getting known for. And, you know, I was getting in trouble for it, even though all my teachers liked me and I got good grades and stuff. You know, they could tell that there was something going on at home. You know, like, I had a very unstable home life and, you know, started getting mixed up in the wrong crowds. And they're like, we don't understand because you're so talented, like, and you get straight A's even though, you know, you skip school a lot. But, and then you're getting in trouble too. It's just like crazy. So then I started training boxing, trying to, you know, stay out of trouble or whatever. And then, ended up getting married at an early age and, you know, having kids. And then, I got divorced, unfortunately. Actually, it's pretty fortunate. I don't really mind that at all because he's not the person I thought he was. And I picked up working out again. Around 25, I started getting back into mixed martial arts because I was dating a guy that started doing it as well. And every time him and I were going out and drinking, you know, in bars and stuff, that was kind of the thing to do where I lived in Boise at the time. Like, he was always getting into fights and guys were messing with him. I started, like, jumping in, and then it got to the point where, you know, we're always bailing each other out of jail. We need to do something different. Like, that's not cool. It's not, you know, the route I need to be going. I already, you know, I really went through, you know, I have a history that a lot of people don't even know about. Like, I grew up in the system. I've been on probation and in some form of anger management since I was, like, 12. You know what I mean? Like, incarceration, like, group homes, like, homeless, like, you know what I mean? And yeah. I finally just wanted to change my life, and MMA changed my life, and I haven't looked back. And, you know, I had a lot of, you know, crazy stuff happen along the way, but I don't regret it, and it's been a lot of sacrifice, and it is stressful doing it alone with 2 kids and stuff, but, you know, now that I've been doing so well with it, and I still haven't realized my full potential, like, just support from my family and everything else, friends and just, you know, teammates and stuff, it's just been very overwhelming. Even throughout all of this stuff, if everyone's like, gosh, I'm so sorry about all the negativity, I'm like, you know what, I've gotten more positivity from everybody that actually knows me than anything else. It's been pretty awesome. So, yeah, MMA, I think, really saved my life, honestly.
Yeah,
aside from my children, you know what I mean?
Yeah. What moment did you realize that A, you wanted to pursue a career in mixed martial arts, and B, realize, hey, I can really make a full-time living off of fighting and training in mixed martial arts?
Honestly, like, when I saw Gina and Julie fight, I think that did it for a lot of women. I just remember looking up and getting obsessed off of, like, YouTube videos and knowing who Chris Cyborg was before anybody knew who she was in the mainstream. And all I would do is just, like, you just watch, you know, that's all you could do is find, you know, and all the veterans, like Julie Kedzie and everybody. I was just, like, in Tara LaRosa and, you know, Shayna Baszler, and I, like, a lot of these girls, Caitlin Young, and now they're my friends, and people are calling me a veteran. I'm like, I haven't done shit compared to any of you guys, you know, like, you know, I've taken time off, and it's really hard for me to be consistent, and actually even still, until recently, signing the contract that I have, and after the whole Bellator thing, being able to be like, yeah, I can make this a full-time thing, because before I'd have to take time off and go back to school or focus on a job because I have mouths to feed, you know, so it hasn't been consistent, but now, before I'm too old to do it, I'm really taking a good stab at it, and you know, the promotion that signed me, we haven't released it yet, and hopefully we will this week, and they believe in me, and, you know, I mean, I'm, you know, until I dropped off because of injuries, I was ranked number 3 at my weight class, so obviously I'm doing something right.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to that. Let's touch on this topic that has made news recently. Multiple quote unquote MMA journalists took a lot of umbrage to you just asking a question about the term white pride. You didn't say you were going to do it, you just asked the question, what would people think if you use that phrase on clothes or even as a tattoo? Because obviously current UFC champion Cain Velasquez has a brown pride tat. The response was very ugly. A lot of writers on actually, respected sites basically calling you either ignorant
Yeah.
or a racist. What was your reaction to the outrage people had about your tweet?
Let's see, my reaction was, remember I fell asleep and, I woke up and it had just blown up because I just really didn't think it. It was kind of like a question, like, I just didn't think people would take it to that extent. I guess it was like a boring news day. And I am just like, I'm trying not to, like, take it personal. I was really bummed out. Middle Easy, he wrote me an open letter, and I was like, bro, my kids are half brown. I date a half brown guy right now. My ex-husband's last name was Barajas Gonzalez. That was my last name forever. And I had to fight through being, like, ashamed of being white for a long time. I have my kids coming and telling me at school, at a school that was predominantly Hispanic, they were getting kicked on for being white. Are we supposed to, because of things that they have no clue that happened in history, then there's a lot of things that have gone down in history that either they haven't even affected anybody currently, or that people aren't even aware of that happened to white people. Also, you know what I mean? There's just so many things, and it's a good topic to debate on, but don't come at me all crazy like you even know anything about me personally or my life, or, they, like, twisted everything around to make it seem like something that it wasn't at all. And more people came out and said, this is absolute bullshit that they're doing this to you. My coaches, everybody at Team Quest, which the majority of them aren't even white. Most of the people that were texting me hit me up and they were making all sorts of jokes, and I realized, I was like, most of the text messages and my friends aren't even white, and that's why they thought it was so, like, ridiculous and yet funny. And I tried to just deal with it with sarcasm. I honestly didn't lose a wink of sleep over it because I was like, you guys are stupid and bored. And if I was a bigot, come on, then I guess I better sit my kids down and tell them, hey, guess what? Mommy's racist against you guys because you guys are half Mexican. You know what I mean? But I just feel like after all the progress we made, and we have Obama as a president, whoever loves or hates that, like, we've made so much progress, and yet it just doesn't make any sense to me. It seems kind of, there's so many ways you can look at it. You know what I mean? But, like, a lot of people brought up a good point, like, how are you even proud of something that's just how you're born, and that's the law, And I'm like, exactly. That was kind of my point. But why is it still, like, it's kind of perpetuating that cycle of hatred. People, they hated being oppressed, but yet they keep bringing up this reminder, and it's confusing. You know what I mean? I'm honestly kind of neutral about it. I kind of was just asking the question to see, I just don't understand why it's okay for someone not the other when we've come so far, it seems, as a society. But obviously, especially after the backlash, obviously we haven't. Either that or people just really are bored with their lives and they have nothing the hell else to talk about.
Yeah,
It was unreal, but funny to me. I just made jokes about it. My friends were making jokes about it. And, of course, what happened in history isn't a joke, but, people did go through a lot to get to the point where now we should be able to have intelligent conversations about this stuff. You know what I mean? Everybody's so ultra-sensitive. And it's like, I'm not going to be ashamed and sit there and not say what I have to say because I'm white. That's bullshit. Like, I remember when I married my husband and being the only white person ever at every function, it was so uncomfortable all the time, and I had to earn that respect. And I have a very thick skin from it. And I have been incarcerated and remember being the minority and being taken under their wing. And, it was a very scary thing initially when you're young as a teenager, in like a hardcore prison setting. People don't even know that about me. Like, you have no clue. All of my friends were brown since I was very young, and I don't know why. It's not like I am ashamed of being white or anything like that. It's just, I love everybody. My friend, I've dated the rainbow. But ironically, I can't even remember, aside from a girl that I dated a few years ago that was white, before that, I haven't had a white boyfriend since, like, my freshman year in high school. They've been either Japanese, freaking Hispanic, Black, Korean, no joke. So people really do need to do their research and, like, see the, and don't twist it out to make it something that it's not. So, I mean, you know, I get a little irritated about how stupid people are, but at the same time, I'm just like, thanks for the entertainment. And the fact that anything that I even say made it on those sites, thank you, because obviously anything I have to say is relevant. Like, that was shocking to me. Who gives a shit what I have to say? I haven't even been on TV yet.
I totally
that was
agree.
Kind of an ego boost.
Yeah, I totally, you know, I totally 100%. Sorry, I got something stuck in my throat. I totally agree. Jake. I totally agree. Sorry, I fucking legit had like some weird thing stuck in the back of my throat. But yeah, I think to call the term white pride racist in of itself is very racist. You know, I'm just as white as Sarah Kaufman, and I'm really proud of my Irish or white roots. You know, I mean, burning crosses were also used by white racists in the past, but we don't equate
right.
crosses with racial injustice. Why do you think people have such a problem with the term, especially when it's used in a non-hateful context?
Yeah, like that's like I seriously feel like that debate will never end until the point where all of us are going to be mixed, which it seems to be getting that way. And I obviously don't have a problem with it whatsoever. But the thing is too, like with my kids too, like, I'm German, Norwegian, Dutch, and Irish. Am I going to get all those tattoos put on me? I just think it's okay for me to just say, I'm white. I'm white trash, if you want to freaking put it that way, if that makes you feel better. I really don't care. I know who I am, you know what I mean? And it's just like, I ask the question, and I understand where people are coming from the impression that happened in history. But I'll tell you right now, on a personal level and the things that I've gone through in my life, I probably had more right to say what I did than anybody else that wrote a freaking article on there. Because I've actually been there, and so have my kids. That's why it's so confusing for me, because I sometimes don't know what to say to them, because I've had to sit there and argue with principals, and I'm just like, even they are, I'm like, you're seriously going to let these kids at your school, because, you know, they're all brown, like, call my kids out for being half white and, like, make them feel ashamed for that? You guys need to, like, teach sensitivity. Because I'll tell you right now, if my half-white kids were to say something to a brown kid, you know what I mean? Oh, my God, that'll be racist, just like what happened with me. It's fucking bullshit. It's hypocritical. And people just need to quit being ultra-sensitive. It is what it is. I'm not going to be ashamed of being white, yet I'm not going to list every single freaking background or, you know, ethnicity that I have. And I'm just, like, honestly, it's just retarded. It's just flipping retarded, and yet it still amuses me. It's funny.
Yeah, you know, I won't dwell too much on that topic, but did want to bring another topic up that made news earlier in the year. We here on the MMA podcast have had, well, some negative things to say about Brian Caraway. You know, for a guy who criticizes people's lifestyles so much, you would think he'd be smarter than to say he's you know, glad he took away a quote-unquote friend's bonus money, and of course we had the debacle where he said he would punch Ronda's teeth in. May, you said he sold an ex-roommate of yours PEDs. You've always been an outspoken fighter, and we love you for it. What do you really think about Brian Caraway?
You know, I don't know the cat personally. It was just like what I heard through in the text message that I saw, and I was like, keep that stuff out of my house. I remember, you know, and Tanya at the time, she hated him so much, hated Misha so much. I didn't have a problem with either one of these people, and I just didn't care. But our roommate was friends with them and, like, really kissing their butts and everything else, and she really liked them. So I didn't have any reason to believe that she would say anything as a lie. You know what I mean? Where she was saying, Brian thinks I should get on this, and this is going to help me. And straight up was like, yeah, and here's the, you know, I bought this from him, and yada, yada, yada. And yeah, everybody knew at the time when they were living in that caravan or whatever, that's how he made his money. And I'm not saying that he used them, nor am I saying that Misha did, but that girl at the time, she alluded to the fact that he was beating Misha on cycles and stuff like that because her body had changed so much. But at the same time, that doesn't, you know what I mean? That's no proof. and nor do I really give a shit about that. I just only know when she moved out, she said, hey, go and look in my room because those vials of steroids, whatever they were, I can't remember what they were even at the time, and I couldn't tell. She said something about a bottle, so I don't know if it was a vial of something like a liquid or if it was pills. Go and look around for it in my room. And I'm like, you fucking bitch. I told you to keep that stuff out of the house. And so I'm looking around and I'm like, they're not, whatever it is, it ain't here. Come to find out, her girlfriend had found out about it and was also upset that her and Brian had done with the transactions and she had thrown it away. I was like, cool, kudos to them. Totally had forgotten about it. But there was other things that came up too. She was just like talking about how Misha was like, hey, you should come and fight up in Washington State. But fight as an amateur, they'll never know, you know, because she was a pro or whatever and had a couple pro fights and she just wanted to be active. Like, that's just shady stuff. Like, both of them had been involved in some real shady stuff. And I was like, Melissa, don't do that. You will get suspended, like, either for a year or indefinitely if you're a pro, and then you freaking sandbag and you fight as an amateur. Like, that's the worst shit I've ever heard in my life, and I can't believe Misha Tate, who's supposed to be somebody, is suggesting that you do this. She's not a good friend. Neither is Brian. If they're doing these, you know, like suggesting and like, you know what I mean, pressuring her kind of in a way. Not to she was really a gullible person. She's not the best person in the world, but it is what it is. And I had no reason to lie about it, and I never talked about it before. You know, like when he came to Uriah's gym, I was just like, ugh. You know what I mean? You better be real careful about that stuff because Uriah and them are very, very strict. They're so all natural, very, very, you know what I mean, good, clean-cut, straight-edge guys. And I was like, Brian ain't going to fit in with them at all from everything we heard. And then people started coming out of the woodwork, and I'm like, I'm not just saying this because I want to ruin anybody's life, because that's not my style. Misha's done some dirty stuff to me even before any of this came out, where she, like, literally tried to ruin my life because I always spoke my mind about her, but I never said anything that was, like, a lie. You know, I was just like, what you're doing trying to get a pro fighter to fight an amateur fighter could ruin her career. You know, she didn't like the fact that I stick up for myself, so she like would just like stoop to really low levels of guys. What just would, like not even.
What would she do?
Just immature. Well, this was a couple years ago, but she found like some pictures that I had done, and they were never released, and I never like got to see any of them or anything like that. They're kind of more for my personal use, and then some, they were modeling or whatever. And then some of them were topless, and then she went and found the guy and, like, blasted and paid, like, and offered to play Front Row Brian and Bloodstained Lane to put him on the internet. And at first they were kind of like, oh, she does, you know, topless, and I'm not ashamed of that either. First off, I don't care, but the way she did it was in a vindictive, shady way, like that. Oh, I'm sorry, I wake up naked every day like the rest of you. Yeah, I was just like she was trying to, like, ruin my life and my career. And all that did was give me more freaking followers. And I remember Shannon Knapp from Invicta was like, hey, you know, and everybody else like, hey, somebody's shopping these pictures around, and everybody started snitching and saying it's Misha. And I was just like, man, this chick's had it out for me from the beginning, and only because I always was sticking up for Tanya, because I never said nothing about the whole steroid thing with Brian and them for a long time, and I could have done that when the picture thing started. The only time I even brought that up was when dude said something about Healy, because I just felt like that's really hypocritical of you to say. There's lots of stuff and dirt I have on all sorts of people, but unless they do something to me, I'm not going to go out of my way. I don't do things for headlines. People say I do stuff for attention. It's not my people pay attention to the shit that I say. I lead an interesting life. And people don't even know half of the life that I've lived. I could write a documentary or have a documentary. I do biography on it. Trust me, there are so many different facets to my life. And that's the reason why I have the balls to say what I have to say, because people gossiping is, like, flattering to me. Trust me, being incarcerated with some scary-ass, crazy bitches that are, like, murderers, okay, that's scary. That's real-life shit. This is freaking, like, the Powder Puff Girls. This is nothing. This is funny. This is a joke for me. I'm serious. I'm not even kidding. I grew up homeless, watching my mom try to kill herself multiple times, being homeless, living on the streets. I know about real life shit. This is like a luxury. The fact that we're able to even talk about racial type stuff is a luxury in comparison to what people are going through in other countries or even in our country right now. You know what I mean? We have the freedom to express ourselves, and I'm going to do it. And I didn't do it intentionally to hurt anybody. I never did anything intentionally to hurt Brian or Misha either, even though they've gone out of their way to do it to me. I just said what was true, period. And yes, I took topless photos. And guess what, bitches? I'm probably going to take more. And if Playboy comes out and offers me to do it, I'm going to do that too. Guess what? Because I have kids, and I like money.
Ramses, did you have a couple questions you wanted to ask?
Actually, yes. Michelle, this is Ramses. I'm on Twitter, the word on the street, the Aunt Jimmy Show. Been following you for a while. Hi, nice to be talking to you. I'm appreciating your honesty. It's amazing. Thank you for your time, honestly. No, definitely. Yeah, and totally. If it was Misha, that was a bitch move. Hopefully, I don't know.
Bitch move.
Hopefully, yeah. hopefully, Front Row Brian and Bloodstained Lane did the right thing because they are.
They did. They totally called her out on it too.
Yeah, they are good guys. Is what I'm gonna say. They're buddies of mine. So yeah, shout out to them definitely. Michelle, I do want to ask you because it always fascinates me when I get a chance to speak to a fighter that has children. I always want to know what a fighter tells their kids about dealing with bullies. And I was also, doing my research about you earlier. I was watching interviews that you've done, articles, you did mention that you were talking about it right now, that you grew up in a hard environment. You were, I'm guessing from what I put together, you were bullied at first, and then eventually you figured it out. You stood up to, I think I read something where you stood to your mom told you to stand up to the biggest one, and you did, or so, it was something like that. So I'm wondering, since you've been on both sides, the victim and, I'm sure you weren't a mean person. Well, you've been bullied. Everybody has. Is what I'm saying.
Right.
But you actually, you actually turn the tables. So what do you, having been, you've seen both sides, what do you tell your kids to do as far as if anybody tries to fuck with them, honestly?
And that's funny too, because being known for what we do, like I have neighbors right now, legit, so prejudiced against me. We have a court date tomorrow because ever since they saw that they moved in, they saw the sticker on the back of my truck. They've been terrified of me ever since. It's this biggest debacle joke of my life. They never came and introduced me or anything because, they just think, they imagine, I guess, the movie Fight Club or something, that we just have a basement full of randoms. You know what I mean? They have no education of it whatsoever, what fighters are, so they're completely prejudiced about it. But, the whole the whole philosophy behind martial arts is the more you know about it, the less you're supposed to use that. And I tell my kids that, and they know that. They know not to use what they learn in the gym at school unless somebody puts their hands on them. Yes, do not let anybody do that, but you do not go out of your way to instigate anything because you're going to immediately be the bad guy. And that's just how it is. Just like when I said the thing about anything that has to do with being proud about being white, I'm the bad guy. You know what I mean? That's the same thing. If you're a fighter, it's just about being prejudiced and just people being small-minded and just finding, playing those stupid cards. You know what I mean? Oh my God, she's a fighter, therefore, she's violent. Oh, these kids, they wrestle and they do jiu-jitsu. Therefore, if anything happens, no matter what, it's their fault. So I tell them, you got to be very careful because people are real ignorant and they're just going to use that and play that. And, and I've had my oldest son especially been targeted. Oh, he does wrestling, or kids not knowing what jiu-jitsu is or not believing that he does it and kind of test him a little bit. And he's, last year he had a rough year because he's sticking up for himself. And I'm like, you need to always stick up for yourself, but you need to choose your battles. I am a firm believer of not snitching. That's the way I grew up. You don't snitch. And that's a lot of the reason why I got in trouble for a lot of things, because I went down for stuff that other people did. But with my kids, obviously, I want them to live a different life. And I'm like, there are times when snitching is appropriate. And this is what you say is, okay, since I've been judged and gotten in trouble before for, physically sticking up for myself when this other kid attacks me, please, somebody get him away from me before it happens again. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I try to say, use your logic and make sure that no matter what, you could hurt that person really bad. of course, if somebody's going to come after you, like my kid's got his hair pulled during soccer pinch and all stuff, like during PE and stuff, and he just turned around and just socked this kid. And of course, immediately my kids like thought of as being the bad guy, and I'm like, he had some little bitch-ass kid pulling his hair like a girl, and that hurts more than getting punched. I know from experience. Yeah. So, you know what I mean? Like, but of course, I'm like, you have to realize, just like me, being a fighter, you're going to always be the one in the wrong, period.
Definitely.
Valid.
Yeah. Yeah, Alan, did you also have a question that you wanted to ask?
Yeah, just a little small question. Hey, Michelle, this is Westland Eagle from Twitter. I had kind of stood up for you the other day whenever the whole brown pride issue came into hand, because they had that one guy that had a Twitter handle saying brown pride and how it wasn't racist. So I started popping up all the brown pride gang members,
right?
And how there's a difference between white pride and white power. That you can't equate the two,
right?
Totally two different things. But yeah, I just wanted to ask, like, as a fighter, whenever you first started out, you won your first fight, but then you had back-to-back losses. At that point in your career, like, how did you feel? And like, going forward, what was your mindset? Having that type of adversity. I mean, it's only 2 fights, but it being early on in your career, what did you tell yourself?
I was really like mentally hard. I didn't know anything. Like those first 2 losses, I'd had maybe 6 months training altogether under my belt, and I had the guys at the gym not knowing much about the females and nobody knowing how to research on females. And their coaches and gyms have a tendency to hide their records, hide their last names, if they've ever been married, this, that, and the other. You know what I mean? They protect them, and kind of like sandbag. They sandbag like crazy, especially back then. And so we could never, this is going to be totally like, and the promoters are shady too, Oh, you guys are equal and blah, blah, blah. Come to find out, I was fighting top 10 girls, like, right out the bat. So there's no shame in that. Like, the whole Sophie Bagardite thing, that was the complete bullshit thing, because come to find out, her manager was the freaking promoter that ran that fight. We didn't even know. It was complete. That thing was bullshit. And I love Sophie. Her and I get along and everything else, but we're going to rematch eventually, after she gets back. She just had a baby, and, then the real deal is going to, and I'm going to win. And that's just how it's going to be. Because I was winning initially when it happened. It was like a freaking bullshit stoppage for nothing. It was so confusing. That's when I realized how shady it could be, especially for the females. Then with Lynn Alvarez, she's just a freaking tough chick. But despite the fact that I lost, that was probably one of my best freaking grueling, most awesome fights that I wish I would have got on video. Like, no love lost. Like, at that, we put our heart and soul out. Like, we got fight of the night. We got bonuses for that and everything. And the fact that I even stood toe-to-toe and I found out she had a bunch of kickboxing after the fact and had all this experience, and here I am with, like, 6 months experience, I really, you know what I mean? It was a little disheartening just, like, knowing how shady people can be, but it didn't really make me feel like I had any less skill or potential whatsoever. And trust me, I've tried to get rematches with a lot of these girls. Those 3, her and those 2, and then Zoila. And it'll eventually happen. Probably not with Lynn. She's not as active and she's a smaller weight. But Sophie and Zoila, we'll meet again, and it'll be on a fair ground. Like with Zoila, I broke my foot. I was dominating that whole entire thing until I broke my foot on her. And even her coaches after the fact, they were like instant messaging me and saying like how embarrassed they were of how she acted and blah, 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 and that they knew what the real deal was. So it's whatever. But, you win some and lose some. But I am not ashamed of my loss to Lynn Alvarez. I give her nothing but respect. And, but like I said, I still am proud of that fight. It was an awesome fight. We tore each other up. It was great. It was great. I wish they would have recorded that.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, because we had a guy that he's looking to fight, and he did really bad at his first jiu-jitsu tournament, and he turned that into the next couple of fights. He came out and he just dominated, and I know he was really bummed after the first one, and I just wanted to get your perspective from it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it definitely, it can go either way, man. That's really where you dig down deep and you find out, is this meant for you or not? And obviously I overcame, and it wasn't meant for me, and it chose me or whatever. And I even tried to run from it, and I just is something that I naturally am able to do. And of course, you have to put in the hard work too. But I always tell people, you know, you gotta start off slower. People get overzealous. I definitely did get duped into going pro with absolutely no training, no amateur fights or nothing. And so now I'm a lot more protective with people. Like, you need to slow down. You are not ready yet. They think they are, but they're not. And it's just like, yeah, do those grappling tournaments and all that stuff, and, you know, get experience in those ways under your belt first, and amateur and everything else. Smoker fights, all that. I think that's really good.
Yeah, thank you to Ramses and Alan for questions. Just a few more MMA related questions before we let you go. Thank you so much for the time. I do want to ask about Bellator. Not only have they dissolved their women's MMA divisions, but you weren't even able to watch Bellator 106 on Spike this weekend because of their insanely idiotic West Coast feed delay. What are your thoughts on Bellator?
They're just a hot mess, man. They have some talented fighters in there that just, like, don't even get the recognition. I'm glad that the guys got their payday. Mike and Eddie got their paydays finally, you know, that they deserve or whatever. But it just seems like it's turning into a big shit show. I'm not even mad they dissolved the women's because it's almost, you know what I mean? It's like getting too, like, theatrical. It's embarrassing almost. Let the good guys go and you guys can continue being, you know, whatever, like, I don't know, like, be a stepping stone promotion if that's what you're going to do. Quit trying to compete because obviously they can't. They keep screwing up left and right all the time. And then they try, anybody that tries to be like, hey, I'm not happy with how you're treating me, then they just try to ruin their lives instead of letting them go, you know? And then here I am, Long Beach. I'm like, I should have just freaking gone to the fights. I got invited to go, and now I have to wait forever because obviously I'm going to watch these fights, you know? Newell was Emmanuel Newton was training at her gym. I'm buddies with King Mo, so of course I want to see that fight. And then who never wants to watch Eddie fight or Mike? And then them together, it's just like the holy, like, grail orgasm of fucking fights, you know, MMA. It was awesome, but then they just keep finding ways to screw it up. So they've never done anything personally to me, but at the same time, them dissolving the women's division, and then now with my new contract, I dodged a bullet, and things can be going better. For me, anyways.
Yeah, you mentioned your newest deal. Is it something you can't talk about yet? It's going to be released later in the week?
Yeah, it should have been last week, but there's a lot of things going on internally, you know, and their timing and everything else. And, you know, I'm not trying to jump the gun. My managers know what's best. Malky Kawa, Abraham Kawa, they manage the top guys. John Jones, unfortunately, you should say. Aside from Misha, I'm the only other girl under them. You know, they manage Carlos Condit. You know, these guys know what they're doing. They're telling me to be patient, and I'm listening to them. And it's kind of cool, though, too, that I have managers that tell me, don't censor yourself and be you, girl. Because when I read what you said, and obviously Malky Kawa, hello, he is not white, and he said that he heard about when they started writing about, oh my God, Michelle said this and that. And he's like, I agreed with you. I thought that it is hypocritical that it's okay for one but not the other. I was like, man, I love you. Thank you. You know what I mean? They back me up. My team backs me up. Everybody I know, white, brown, black, green, yellow, they've all been backing me up except for a few random retarded people, and they don't matter, so whatever.
Well, actually, 3 of the 4 of us are going to be in Vegas in a week and a half for UFC 167. Chael Sonnen versus Rashad Evans, GSP versus Johnny. Who do you have in both of those fights?
Of course, Chael. He's been training at our gym for a while, and he is the nicest guy. Oh my God, he is so. A lot of people call me the female Chael fights from Rwanda, but like, and I think a lot of people, you know, people take our words and this and the other. He's a little bit more calculated in his speech. Me, I just kind of am off the cuff and just say whatever and whatnot. But everybody that knows me knows, like, you know, I'm a mom first and foremost, and I am a thoughtful person. But at the same time, I'm going to say what I have to say, and Chael's the same way. But he's so normal, and so many people hate on him. I think they're just jealous because he's got balls to say what they don't say, and I think it happens the same way with me. So, of course, I'm going for Chael, and definitely going for Hendricks, man. And I don't know. I mean, GFC's a great athlete and everything, but going for Johnny, man.
Yeah,
for sure. And then, of course, this weekend, Dan's fighting, so I'm going for him.
Hell yeah, Team Darkside.
Yeah, you actually probably know a good friend of all of ours, Coach Jamie Huey, who is on Ramses' show every Tuesday. Also, a super nice dude.
Oh, yeah.
But
it's awesome.
Final question. This one is very important. It was Halloween just a few days ago. What did you dress up as, and what is Michelle Ould's favorite all-time scary movie?
I dressed up as a gynecologist.
Oh, shit.
What?
I am a proficient at that, just so you ladies and gentlemen know. And my favorite scary movie of all time.
We did hear the MMA roasted show, so we're all aware.
What did I say was my scary movie?
I don't know. There are a lot of decent ones. Personally, it's Halloween for me. Michael Myers. You can't beat him.
Yeah, Michael Myers, and it was like one of the early Freddy movies when like the body was out in the middle of the hallway and all wrapped up in a bag. Remember, and her legs lifted up and she was getting drugged?
Yeah.
That shit scared me. I don't remember, it was Freddy 1 or 2. But yeah, I torment myself with scary movies and doll movies, and I'm still deathly afraid of dolls to this day. Fighter or not, there are no dolls allowed in my house.
If I'm like spending the night at like a creepy aunt's or a grandma's house or something, and there's a doll sitting there staring, I'll like turn it around or put it under the bed or something.
If you're scared of dolls, then you both need to watch The Conjuring.
I did twice.
Word.
That's awesome.
Scared the shit out of me both times.
Well,
I didn't sleep too good.
Well, Michelle, you have taken a lot of time to answer our asinine questions. Is there anything you would like to say? Any plugs, sponsors, anything under the sun?
God, I wish I could come out and say who I was going to be fighting for, but I just like really appreciate the support from my Team Quest family and just anybody and everybody. Love me and hate me. I really don't care. You're keeping me relevant, despite the fact I haven't fought in over a year. So, and I appreciate everybody that's even just like put their input in. I've learned a lot from it. Of course, my children, they keep me on my toes, and my blood family, my non-blood family, and anybody out there that's wanting to sponsor me, hit me up. And Rev Gear and Americana MMA, SpitTheTruth.com. If I'm forgetting anybody, MMA Grills, Perfect Chan Temecula, all these people have just been through with me, ride or die, dynamic fitness. But at the end of the day, it's all about my kids and my parents and Team Quest.
Word. Well, we
White pride. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah, when that news drops later on, we will retweet the shit out of it. We hope to talk to you again and really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, Michelle.
You're awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Take
Bye-bye.
it easy. And there she goes, Michelle Ould. That was one of the funnest interviews. Definitely the first interview that ended with the person saying white pride.
Sorry, some weird crap happened. Anyway, hopefully you guys can hear me. I did want to say something about the white pride thing. I want to say, speaking as a brown man, I am Hispanic myself. I did want to say it, Michelle, and to everybody listening, anybody that has anything to think about this issue. I'm brown myself, and I have to say, if I get to say brown pride, of course anybody white should get to say white pride. The problem is people are so quick to be offended. They'll be like, oh shit, you don't understand the history, the context. Look, neither does anyone alive anymore. All right? No slaves are still alive that I'm aware of. No slave owners are still alive that I'm aware of.
What about those? Well,
and what about the slaves who were sold into slavery by their own people?
Ariel Castro killed himself, but those 3 girls are still alive, and they were slaves.
I'm talking about the slave trade that's based on race. I mean, those people are not alive anymore. What I'm saying is, I would feel embarrassed. I would feel embarrassed and ashamed of myself as a man if I tried to claim that somebody owed me something because of some shit that was done to one of my ancestors. I would feel embarrassed, all right?
Yeah, but
we
you
live in
have-
a world where you
you
can
have
get your
pride.
own. I got the brown pride, and everybody's should have pride. It doesn't care. It doesn't matter what color it is. And the
Yeah, but
fact
a lot
that
of
you're
them
saying,
don't.
the fact that she was saying white pride, why isn't that all right? And that's a damn good question. Why isn't that all right now? Like, especially because if you're gonna say brown pride or black pride, why the hell are you? You know what? This is not gonna go anywhere positive. But thanks, Jake. That was a good interview.
I think Alan's fucking a beanbag or something. What the hell is going on over there, man?
I don't know.
I kept muting and unmuting.
Word up. Well,
That's
yeah,
exactly what he's doing.
that was a fun ass interview, and like I mentioned, Alan Ross and I will all be fucking beanbags in Vegas during UFC 167. Definitely tweet us if you'll be there as well. We'll have a couple beer, a couple whiskey. You know what the fuck it is. Let's get straight to it, because that interview went on for an extremely long time, and we got a whole shitload of stuff to talk about. Mainly Bellator 106. Holy shitballs! How, like, everyone was saying Curran was going to beat Strauss. Everybody was saying Lawal was going to beat Newton. Everybody was saying Chandler was going to beat Eddie Alvarez. All three favorites losing, 2 belts changing hands. That was a crazy, crazy card. We'll start with the featherweight championship. Pat Curran, he had been on a tear. The build-up video, he talked more about him being the best featherweight in the world than he did about him being better than Strauss. Strauss, I think the tag was hashtag Pigtail Nation or something, rocking the dreadlock piggy tails, and went out and won a very, very handily 49-45, 48-46, 48-46. Unanimous judges nod. A point was deducted from Curran for a kick to the nuts, I think. With all of the pokes in the eyes and the kicks in the nuts, I fucking forget. But I think it was a kick in the nuts. What did you guys think of that fight?
It was a knee to the head that didn't even actually connect.
That's right, yeah.
But yeah, I think that Curran just didn't go out there and perform. He, like always, as he always does, tried to play from behind, and Strauss went out there and did, imposed his will, which is, winning on points. Doesn't try to finish the fight, just tries to go in there, be physical, dominate the other guy, get him on the ground, get top position, and just, outwork the other guy. And that's what he did. And, we got a new champion.
We got a new champ, Alan, or that was Alan. Ross Ramses, what do you motherfuckers got to say about this?
Well,
sorry, Ross. I'll be real quick. I didn't watch the fight.
Go ahead.
I didn't watch. No, I didn't watch the fight. So you're up.
Okay then. Am I discussing all three? I'm sorry, I got mixed up in the commotion here.
Strauss Curran, thoughts on the fight?
Strauss Curran. I was surprised. I thought Pat Curran was good enough to find openings in Daniel Strauss's game and to make openings. And he just did not do that. He never made openings. He just waited. He stood on the outside, and he got taken down. He got beat up. He got outstruck. He was destroyed. And it was a perfect performance by Daniel Strauss. I mean, other than eating an illegal knee, he fought a perfect fight. So all the credit to him. I mean, the guy's won, I think he's 18-1 in his last 19, with his only loss to Pitbull. I think Pitbull is incredible. Pitbull's going to offer him a very tough challenge. Then again, Pitbull still has to fight Justin Wilcox, and we got to see who wins that. And then there's Frodo waiting in the wings. He has his title shot, so he won the tournament. He's going to fight Daniel Strauss next. But I think Daniel Strauss proved that he's one of the best in the world right now, and we're going to see more of him and more of his skills, and maybe one day we get to see him in the UFC.
Ramses didn't see it. We also have a friend of ours, Yao the Truth. Actually, We usually start off the show with shout-outs. We got Alan, who spoke first, at Westland Eagle AH. We got Ross Finkelstein, E before the L, on Twitter. We got Ramses at the Aunt Jimmy Show. And we got someone else who just popped on the call. He's known as The Truth. He's protecting the streams of Queets. He is protecting the streets of Queets.
He's made up a new word.
He is protecting the streams. He is protecting the streams of Queets. He is Yao, The Truth. What's up?
Yo, what's up, guys? How you doing?
You
I'm
doing
all right,
well?
man, but
Doing well over in Queets?
Why did Queets, though, coming from Jake, have to seem so racist for some reason?
Queets is a very, very hateful racial term.
Something about it sounds. It's a new word. Holy shit!
I think it sounds.
Jake.
It sounds like queef, which makes it sound a little risque.
And it's
but
got like tweets, and then it's also Queens, and it's like,
Yao, chilling in Queets. Is it cold over there yet?
It's very cold, actually.
Word up. Well, we're
Freezing.
You're getting your training in. We're talking about Daniel Strauss taking on Pat Curran. We don't need to ask who you were rooting for obvious reasons. But what did you think of the fight? Strauss really shocked a lot of people who thought Curran was hands down the best featherweight in Bellator.
Yeah, that was an amazing fight. I mean, I haven't been that happy for a fighter winning a fight in a very long time, and it was amazing. Seeing Pat Curran, one of the best featherweights in the world champion in Bellator, and then you have Daniel Strauss go in there and just completely take over the fight. That's what you call a fighter when he takes over the fight. He controlled it in every single area. Even in the striking, where a lot of people doubted him, he was able to keep Pat Curran against the cage, take him down when he wanted to, and he just showed dominance against Pat Curran, and he showed it that he can overcome adversity too. He was kneed illegally in the head. He came back and still controlled the fight.
Yeah.
It was very inspirational, and it was great overall.
Word up. I did want to delve a little bit deeper, but because the interview went so long, I'm gonna make these real quick segments, 10 to 20 seconds. Try and keep it brief. We'll do it for Strauss, Newton, and Eddie Alvarez. How does Daniel Strauss do with the elite UFC featherweights? Swanson, Mendez, Aldo. Can he rank among the top of Zuffa's guys if he were thrown into the UFC? Alan?
As long as the guys are not, equal wrestlers to what he is or better, I think he does all right. I just think that if he gets in there with a guy that has wrestling that's, on the same level and is able to use that wrestling as wrestling takedown defense and keep the fight standing, that Strauss gets destroyed, because he really didn't show anything in the way of striking during that fight. He was able to smother, Curran, but I don't think he does well with top level, defensive wrestlers that have striking.
What do you think, Ross?
He's a pretty well-rounded fighter, and the best part of his game was obviously his wrestling the other night. We're going to have some people on here, one particular person who's going to tout him as like the next UFC champion and the next like pound-for-pound king, but that's just not reality. Once he faces someone who can match his wrestling ability, I mean, him versus Chad Mendez, Daniel Strauss is good. Someone like Chad Mendez is on a totally different level. We're talking about two totally different classes there. Chad Mendez is in a league of his own. Daniel Strauss is not even close to that right now. But I don't know, the jury's still out. He could definitely get better and better and better, and then get in those talks like, wow, maybe this guy could really be a threat in the featherweight division in the UFC. But I think until he shows otherwise, I'm not going to say he's going to beat the elite of the elite in the UFC. He's got to get past Pitbull, really. That's his biggest test. That's his only loss in Bellator, and he needs to try and rectify that.
Word up, Ramses. I know you didn't watch the fight, but 2 words on Daniel Strauss. Title contender, bum status.
Daniel Strauss. Who did he fight?
Pat Curran.
Yeah, I gotta say, people, I feel nothing about either of them. And like, it wasn't that I wasn't watching. It was literally, it was nap time. I took a nap. I woke up for like the last couple of events. But I was always half listening. There was nothing interesting here. I've nothing to say about these people. Nothing about this fight. But I did watch the rest of the card.
White power, yeah?
You named guys like Cub Swanson and Chad Mendez. I'm saying that Daniel Strauss can beat Jose Aldo.
That is ridiculous. Next fight, Emmanuel Newton defeating Muhammad Lawal via unanimous decision. The first fight back in February, Newton knocked him out. This fight, Lawal was coming out to avenge the loss, couldn't do it. Newton, which I thought was a little bit funny. Everyone on Twitter was saying the same thing. I got Newton on my scorecards, but I hate MMA judging, and I think the MMA judges are going to go with King Mo. But that's not what turned out. Newton won it. Really quickly, we'll kind of merge them into one, because to be quite honest, this wasn't the most interesting fight in the world. What were your thoughts on the fight? And similarly, like I asked with Strauss, how does Newton do with the elite UFC light heavies? I don't think he has a chance against guys like Gustafsson, even Rashad and Chael. I think both of those dudes smash him, and Rashad and Chael aren't thought of in that line to the belt where you have Glover and Gus and Cormier. I think Newton does well as long as he stays at Bellator, but this is one of the weight classes where there is just a huge difference in talent between the UFC and Bellator. What did you all think? Yao, I'll send it back to you.
I think we should actually start with Ross. What do you think, Ross?
Yeah, well, I really appreciate that. You actually read the chat, and I thank you very much for that. Team Dark Side all the way. This fight was my finest work in a very long time, because this is a fight that I preached for a very long time would not be won by King Mo. King Mo sucks. King Mo is overrated. King Mo has convinced everyone into thinking that he is a good fighter, when in fact he is very one-dimensional. He actually had a lot of potential. Years ago, he beat a man named Gegard Mousasi. He won the Strikeforce Light Heavyweight Championship, and he was ranked one of the top 10 in the world. Very promising wrestler, very good wrestler. Then he left AKA, really, and he's not training at AKA, and he's training at Mayweather Boxing Club. And his game is just completely gone to shit. He's fallen in love with his hands, which are non-existent. He's working with Roy Nelson, need I say more. So for months, I said that he would lose to Emmanuel Newton again. Emmanuel Newton is so underrated. No one gives him the credit that he deserves. This is a very solid fighter. He's very well-rounded. He's got great takedown defense. We saw it on Saturday night. He was able to stop most of those takedowns. He's got really unorthodox striking. You don't expect what he's going to do. And he's on a huge streak. He's on a 4-fight winning streak right now, but he should be on a much longer streak, because his only loss since losing to Ryan Jimmo back in 2009 was Attila Veg, and it was a fight that pretty much everyone thinks he got robbed in. So Emmanuel Newton, in my opinion, is one of the top 10 light heavyweights in the world right now. He needs credit, and he's going to destroy Attila Veg when they unify the belts.
Yeah, I'll pass it to you now.
Yeah, everything Ross said is correct. I couldn't agree more, especially about King Mo convincing people that he's a good fighter. He actually did convince me, I'll admit. But yeah, Emmanuel Newton, he's honestly very overrated. I think he's not that good. His hands are horrible. His kicks are horrible. His cardio, his footwork, positioning, everything. So I don't think he lasts with the elite of the elite in the UFC.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. Before the fight, he did a very WWE interview, and my initial guttural reaction was like, "Man, fuck that guy!" And I was like, "Wait, he made me react the exact way he wanted me to react. God damn it. Alan, thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Ross. I thought that it was a real good fight. I also expected Emmanuel to win just because, like Ross said, I agree. King Mo is a terrible MMA fighter. He might be a really great wrestler. A lot of people have touted him as one of the best wrestlers in the business, but he can't put the two things together. He's fallen in love with his hands, like Ross said, and it doesn't it doesn't work out too well for him because he doesn't know, which to do. He doesn't transition real well. I think the one thing that stood out in Saturday's fight was how the awkwardness of Emmanuel's striking, whether or not it did a lot of damage or he landed cleanly. The key element to the whole fight was how he kept Mo off balance. Mo, you could see it in his eyes. He didn't know when to, throw a, 1-2 or when to go for a takedown. And, Emmanuel had stopped most of his takedowns and, he just confused King Mo and, he won the fight, handedly. And, do I think that he can beat the guys in the UFC? Maybe some. Do I think he could beat a Ryan Bader, some fringe top 10 guys, top 15 guys? Yeah. As far as it gets into the top 10, maybe. I've got to see a little more. We'll see when he fights at Tel Aviv. But I was definitely impressed. I enjoyed the fight. I even went out and bought a Emmanuel Newton walkout shirt.
Ramses, do you have anything on either of these two?
Yeah, this fight, man. It was a victim of its own hype. Unfortunately, this rematch with these guys, man, they sputtered out at the end. I gotta say.
Yeah.
It definitely they both gassed out. It started looking like a bum fight towards the end. They both. I'm not even being racist, but it looked like it was Kimbo Slice versus Kimbo Slice at the end of this one, man. The spinning crap got out of hand. It was out of hand. All right, the amount of times he threw it, it wasn't even telegraphing, man. It was like he was almost. It was like a given. It's the weirdest damn shit I've ever seen in a fight.
But it won him the fight.
Yeah, it did. That was the only reason. He was just the least gassed, visibly throwing the most shit, and that won him the fight. And it seemed like both gentlemen, Emmanuel Newton and King Mo, they both came into this fight with their game plan being to expect the other one to get gassed out first. That was their game plan, to gas each other out. And so what does that translate to? A boring ass fight. Word on the street.
Word on the motherfucking street. Let's move on to, in my opinion, we'll get to it after we talk about the fight, whether you think it was the fight of the year or not. In my eyes, it was the fight of the year. I was talking to Ross about it afterwards. We both think Chandler and Alvarez behind Pettis round out the top 3 lightweights in the world. Both of these guys are just so good. Every time they match up, it is a fucking war. I mean, how Eddie dominated the 3rd, and Chandler came back and whooped his ass in the 4th, and Eddie rallied back and won the 5th. It ended up being a split decision, 48-47, 47-48, 48-47, all in favor of the new Bellator lightweight champion, Eddie Alvarez. It was one of the greatest fights I've ever seen. Give me your thoughts on the entire fight. Who do you think won? What did your scorecard look like? What did you think about the fight? And what's next for Eddie and Michael? A lot of people are saying there's gonna be a trilogy fight. We don't know yet. Because that whole Eddie not getting pay-per-view points thing, we'll see. But who wants to chime in first? Eddie versus Michael. This was a hell of a fucking fight.
Oh,
I'll go first. Yeah, why not?
Oh, okay, thank you, Ross.
But okay, wow. That's the first thing I'm going to say. I'm going to say wow because this fight not only lived up to the expectations and not only lived up to the hype of the first fight,
That didn't happen.
You're cutting me off here. Quit playing the music. I'm giving too long of a speech already.
That did not happen. Sorry.
I think he was trying to say that but what you're saying is this important. It's breaking news. Go ahead, Ross.
That's right.
Sure, we'll go with that one. Thanks. Checks in the mail. This fight lived up to the expectations and more. It was better than the first fight. It was back and forth for 5 rounds. There was no clear-cut winner. It was controversial. It was a fight of the year, and it was exactly what Bellator did not want. Bjorn Rebney was so disappointed after this fight. You could see him shaking his head no when he had to put the belt on Eddie Alvarez. They got caught up in a big court thing, and they basically wanted Eddie Alvarez back. They wanted to diminish his name. They believed that Chandler would beat him. They wanted to diminish his name, and then Eddie would be he wouldn't sign with the UFC, so he'd sign back with Bellator, and they'd have Eddie Alvarez under contract, but they'd have Michael Chandler as the big guy. So they did not get what they wanted. We got what we wanted. We saw an incredible fight. Eddie Alvarez proved that he is not just one of the best in the world. He is probably the number 2 in the world behind Anthony Pettis right now. I believe he's the uncrowned number 1, I think. I truly believe deep down inside he is the number 1 right now. And I got to say, I thought Michael Chandler won the fight. I scored the fight 48-47 for Chandler. I thought he won the first round, the second round, and the fourth round. Very, very close fight. The first round was clearly his. Second and fourth. The fourth round was clearly his. The second round, very, very close. Really, the fight is scored on how you scored the second round, and I scored the second round for Chandler. We've seen 48-48. We've seen 48-47. Alvarez. So many different scores. Another incredible fight, and we've seen now 3 of them in the last 3 months. We saw in September Jones-Gustafsson, one of the greatest fights of all time. We saw Sanchez versus Melendez, one of the greatest fights of all time. 2 great lightweights right there. And then we saw the other night Eddie Alvarez and Michael Chandler go to war for the second time in one of the greatest fights we've ever seen. The best fight in Bellator history. Wow. And I think Eddie Alvarez will fight one more time for Bellator. He's not going to get out of his contract. He doesn't want to get into a long process. He fights one more time for Bellator. He has a very close fight with Michael Chandler that if he wins, he gets to leave Bellator with the belt as a free agent, unrestricted, and go to the UFC. And if he loses, well, shit, the UFC won't sign him immediately. He has to go to World Series of Fighting, fight 2 more times, and then he's in the UFC. I want to see both these guys in the UFC. They're both just 2 of the best in the world. Sorry for rambling. There's my 2 cents. The Jew's done here.
The Jew's done here. Alan, what did you think? Alvarez, Chandler, I was about to say trilogy, but it was only the second fight.
Man, this fight was captivating. The emotion and the backstory to the whole fight, with all the stuff that Eddie's been through, and having their first fight being as big as it was, and the expectations, it delivered on every level. It was amazing to watch. I couldn't sit down in a chair. I couldn't lay down on the sofa. I was like on the edge of my seat. I was like kneeling watching the fight, like I was a fucking head coach in a baseball dugout, watching my batter, with 2 outs left in the bottom of the ninth. 2 strikes on him, and 1 strike. I was just enthralled by what was going on, and it was amazing. I talked to Jake, when the fight ended, and I thought it was gonna be a draw. Just the way that the way the rounds went back and forth, and then with the second round being so close between the 2, I thought it was a draw. But there's no draws in MMA. They don't do that stuff anymore. This ain't John Fitch, BJ Penn. So I thought they were going to give the fight to Chandler. If you looked at Chandler's face, you would think Eddie won the fight. I definitely didn't have any problems with him giving it to Eddie. It depends on how you look at the fight, what type of, judging you do. I think that Eddie landed the harder strikes. He did get rocked a couple of times, but he definitely did a lot more damage and landed a lot more power shots. And I was really excited. I'm really pumped. I hope Eddie, gets everything that he deserves, especially after what he's been through. And I would love to see a third fight, but I'd much rather Eddie do what's best for him and go for the money.
Why pride, yeah?
Yeah, this fight, this fight, I really appreciated it, and it's been a while since I really appreciated a fight. I was so happy for Eddie Alvarez. I picked him to win this fight, and he did. It was a great performance. It's also been a while before I appreciated a fighter's performance, but a lot of people thought Michael Chandler won the fight, and what really disappointed me was Michael Chandler's reaction, as if he was surprised that he lost the fight. If you're going to fight with your hands down at your hips and just get punched in the face repeatedly throughout every single round, you shouldn't be surprised that you lost the fight. If you're going to allow your opponent to do damage and, get a lot of offense off, then you shouldn't be surprised that you lost the fight. I really appreciated how Eddie Alvarez stayed composed. He didn't allow Chandler's aggressiveness to really, mess up his game. He didn't, fall into it. He stayed calm, cool, and collected, and it was a great fight.
Word up. Ramses?
Yeah, I'll keep it real short, people. But this fight was excellent, by the way. I enjoyed watching it, but it was a textbook example of why MMA judging is set up the way it is. This is a case where it actually went right for a change. Eddie Alvarez versus the dude from Friends or whatever. This fight here, it was close. I agree. Alan was saying that he thought it was pretty much a draw, but you don't see those anymore. I agree. If you were to line up the numbers, point for point, jab for jab, this and that, maybe it would be a draw. But the judging comes into play here. They don't judge it, they don't just mark down a number at the end of it. They have criteria to judge each round. I believe it's the same for Bellator as it is for the UFC. I believe they use the unified rules. The judging is, if correct me if I'm wrong, it's based on significant strikes, cage control, otherwise known as octagon control, and damage. So this fight was won by Eddie Alvarez based on damage alone, visible damage. Everything else was a draw. That is the word on the street. That is my assessment. The judging was excellent. Eddie did the most visible damage, and that's what judges have to score it on. And that's why when it comes down to being close decision or a draw, I could understand this one. They gave it to Eddie Alvarez. Definitely.
Definitely, and for what it's worth, I actually scored it a 48-48 draw. Scored the first round for Chandler, the second round a draw, third for Alvarez, 4 for Chandler, 5 for Alvarez, bringing it to 48-48. I would actually talk about whether this was fight of the year, but we don't have time. All we're gonna say is that as MMA fans, the last few months, to see John Jones versus Alexander Gustafsson, to see Diego Sanchez versus Gilbert Melendez, to see Eddie Alvarez versus Michael Chandler too, we are lucky that we are fans of the sport, and I'll leave it at that. Let's play the clip I accidentally played 2 minutes ago. All right, I'm going to start off with a little bit of asinine news, and we're going to work our way up. Hopefully these two topics won't take up a lot of time because they're pretty cut and dry. Roy Nelson saying, I want a rematch with Daniel Cormier. Is Nelson a warrior? Because to get beat up that bad and ask for a rematch is, in of itself a little respectful, or is Nelson just annoying? I vote for the latter. What do you guys think? Alan?
I think I think he's just trolling, to be honest,
Trolling.
There's no way.
Ross?
Roy Nelson is an idiot.
There's a drop I would play of Ramses, but but he drops a hard slur. Ramses, I'll let actual live Ramses say what he thinks. Roy Nelson, a warrior for calling out Cormier, or just sort of an idiot.
Okay, I was going to tweet about this earlier, and then I totally forgot. I'm glad you brought this up. Do you have, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, the exact quote from Roy Nelson about this fight where he said something about sparring? Do you have that quote offhand? Just, if you don't, I'm going to have to be, as far as I can remember it, Big Country Roy Nelson said that when he fought Daniel Cormier...
I actually have it. He said, I didn't feel like it was a fight, just a good sparring match. I was back in the gym on Monday. I just got outpointed. It's nothing against Daniel. Daniel, excellent game plan. Played it to a T. I just wish I had 2 more rounds. That's about it. Daniel won that night, and he was the better guy. I definitely like to do a rematch. I'd fight anybody I ever lost to.
Thank you, Jake. And yes, Big Country Roy Nelson did say it felt like a sparring match. Well, here's the fact, people. It takes 2 people to spar, all right? If it was a sparring match, it was both of the fucking faults, and he did not fight that man. I was there. Listen back to the MMA podcast, Word in the Street podcast. I was at UFC 166 in Houston, and I did call this fight a piece of crap. I told you the crowd was bored. They were texting, talking amongst themselves, getting nachos and whatnot. It was an embarrassment. It was an outrage. And now, Big Country Roy Nelson, it felt like a sparring match. Well, guess what? What, Roy, if that's the case, I want my fucking money back. Roy Nelson, you owe me $150 for my goddamn ticket. You give it back right now, this instant, Mr. It felt like a sparring match. Well, guess what? It takes 2 to spar. Give me my goddamn money back. Word on the street.
Goddamn, yo.
It's kind of hard to follow that, but him saying that is just silly, honestly.
Word. Fair enough. I'm not going to pass it around, but before we get to the fights we're pumped for in November, I did want to touch on Jordan Burroughs. Really, famous wrestler. All I see is gold on Twitter. He's one of the best wrestlers in the world. He says he's never going to fight MMA, which is a shame. We've seen a lot of success from Olympic wrestlers. If any of you have something pressing you want to say, go ahead and interrupt me. But yeah, we've seen Askren, Cormier both do very well, and Jordan Burroughs, I guess we will never see how he does in MMA because he's never going to do it. Let's get to the fights we're pumped for the month of November. Here we go. All right, the fight I'm pumped for. I'm not taking the obvious GSP versus Johnny title fight. I'm taking another title fight. I'm taking the flyweights. The flyweights and the women's bantamweights always seem to put on wars. And this is going to be a rematch. Demetrius Johnson taking on Joseph Benavidez. The first time they fought, Dwayne Ludwig was not the coach of Alpha Male. We assume Benavidez' striking has gotten a lot better. The main thing in that first fight, though, was the wrestling. We all expected Benavidez to be the dominant wrestler. Jesus Christ, wrestler. When in fact it was Johnson. We will definitely see who is the more dominant wrestler in the rematch coming up late November. I believe this is going to be an awesome fight, and I actually think we see the belt change hands. Alan?
As if you could expect me to say anything else. Chael Sonnen fights in how many days? 11 days from now? 12 days? Oh my God. I can't wait, and that's my fight to look forward to. He's going to beat the living shit out of Rashad Evans. Rashad Evans is going to retire and then go join John Jones's camp as a coach, because that's all he's got left.
Jesus Christ. Ross?
I think Alan needs to change his pants. Ladies and gentlemen, I am very excited to see UFC 167. I'm very excited to see Rashad Evans versus Chael Sonnen, but because it was already taken, the fight I am looking forward to the most is going down technically tomorrow at this point, but I guess for the sake of bookkeeping, 2 days from now, UFC Fight for the Troops 3, Steven Siler versus Bermudez. That is a featherweight war. Those two guys are knocking on title contention. I cannot wait to see it. Tune in, Fox Sports 1, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Don't miss it.
Cocksuckers, Yao.
Well, the fight I'm most pumped for was already taken. That's for, Rashad Evans to beat Chael Sonnen at 167. But I'm going to take my favorite fighter, George St. Pierre, defeating Johnny Hendricks, defending his title again. And that's the fight I'm most pumped for.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, the fight I'm pumped for is going down in 2 days, people. Yves Edwards, the Thug Jitsu master, the man who trained me, who taught me everything I know about the art of killing people, martial arts, Thug Jitsu himself, Yves Edwards. He's going to fight Yancy Boy Medeiros. It's going down, people. 2 days from now, it's not even going to be close. He's a lamb being led into the slaughter. You ever seen the scene in Jurassic Park where they're on the track there taking the tour and they feed the goat to the T-Rex on the chain? Guess what, people? It's a Yancy goat, man. It's going down. Yves Edwards, definitely Thug Jitsu master all the way. It's a goddamn shame it's happening on the Facebook prelims, but Yves is going to prove exactly why you main card his ass every time. Word on the street.
I call him out and he covers his mouth like a little Yancy boy. I mean, what is that? Let's move on. A bunch of fight announcements. Last week we talked about Tetsuya Kawajiri coming over from Japan. Now we have an opponent for him. He's going to take on Hakran Diaz in Singapore in January. Do you like that matchup, or do you think Kawajiri deserved a better opponent? Yao?
I'm just going to be straight up. I don't know who we're talking about.
Ramses?
Oh, yeah, I've actually had a chance to study with Tatsuya. I knew him for a very long time, but the problem is Hakran Diaz was also, he was in a training camp that I was involved with a couple of years ago, back when I was volunteering down at the Habitat for Humanity in Honduras. So it's kind of like a catch-22. You don't know who to support on the Tatsuya Kawajiri. He has good takedown, good defense, but Hakran Diaz, man, I mean, he can roll with the best of them. This fight is going to come down to competitiveness, and honestly, it's going to come down to striking and wrestling and grappling and jiu-jitsu, and who can score the most points over the other one. I know they're both going to be giving it 100%, but it's going to be decided by whoever can give it 110%.
That was the most specific, detailed breakdown I've ever heard. But I'm not sure if you really said anything, Ross, Allen. What do you guys think?
I think that it was just, I don't want to say disrespectful, but come on, the man's fought Eddie Alvarez. The man's fought some of the best guys and the best lightweights in the world, and now he's fighting at featherweight. And Kawajiri's, he's not the best in the world, but he deserves better than Hakran Diaz. And I think they should have gave him a bigger name, maybe a top 15 guy.
Yeah, except he's gonna lose his fight. Hakran Diaz is a better fighter than Kawajiri. Kawajiri is on like a 5-fight winning streak. All the fights are in Japan or just somewhere in Asia, and he's not beating anyone. I mean, he comes to America. Every time he fights in America, he gets absolutely destroyed. So, actually, I think he's only fought in America once.
But he's not fighting in America.
It doesn't matter. He's fighting in an American promotion. He's fighting.
It doesn't matter. He's not fighting in America.
He's also fighting someone who's better than him. Hakran Diaz is much better than him. Hakran Diaz is much stronger than him.
Who also has to travel 20
he's
hours.
Training at Nova União. motherfucker, this is my time, not your time. Shut your damn mouth and let the Jew speak. But
Powerful.
he is
Holy
literally
shit.
just so
But the
much
Jew is
stronger.
wrong.
And Yuri Alcantara, he's beaten Yuri Alcantara, who's much better than Kawajiri. He had a tough fight with Nick Lentz. He nearly beat Nick Lentz. Nick Lentz is one of the best in the world right now. Kawajiri is in way over his head. This is a really bad fight for them. I don't know why they gave him Hakran Diaz. They should have gave him someone very, very low on the featherweight ladder, someone he could really easily beat. So I don't think he wins this fight. That's all I got to say. I'm getting interrupted over here.
Yeah, the Diaz versus Uriel Alcantara fight was very interesting back at UFC 147. Definitely check it out if you have not seen it yet and don't know how much of a motherfucker Diaz is. And I think it will be closer than a lot of people think. Another matchup that a lot of people are saying is very one-sided and I think is going to be a lot closer than people think. Lyoto Machida versus Gegard Mousasi, February 8th in Brazil. Do you like that matchup, Ross? I'm going to start off with you, so motherfuckers don't chime in. Alan, he's fucking crazy. He does not give a fuck. Ross, go ahead.
Finally, get to speak my piece.
No.
This fight's a good fight. And I'm excited to see it. I think it's a good matchup. Gegard is coming off of a long layoff, but Machida, he came in on short notice against Mark Munoz and knocked Munoz out. And they do want to keep him active. I think what they're trying to do is set up a Weidman Machida fight July 4th weekend. If Jones Gustafsson fails, which probably won't, they'll probably get that as the main event. They have that as a backup plan. That'd be a huge fight. You'd have America versus Brazil again. You'd have all the Brazilians there. Plus, you have Vanderlei and Chael on the co-main event. So that'd be a huge, huge card for the Americans and for the Brazilians. So, yeah, this is a good fight. I completely diverted away from Gegard Mousasi here, but I think Machida wins. It's not going to be as easy as people think, though. Mousasi's a very formidable opponent, and this is going to be a tough fight.
Alan.
Mousasi got laid on by King Mo and lost. I think Machida punches him in the face. Mousasi was scared to fight Ilir Latifi, so I don't think he has anything from Machida. Machida at 185 is going to be deadly, and he's just going to run through people until Weidman knocks him out.
Yeah.
This fight, this fight is it's gonna be interesting. I think Lyoto Machida is gonna win. I don't like Gegard Mousasi, and I'm gonna leave it at that.
He doesn't like a lot of fighters for absolutely no reason, Ramses.
Especially when they have white colored skin.
Damn, we went there. Well, I'm in between, so I feel comfortable speaking right now. I am brown-skinned, people. Right in the middle. Good thing I'm here. This fight, though, Lyoto Machida versus Gegard Mousasi. Let's face it. Machida just re-signed with the UFC, new contract. Mousasi, I believe, he couldn't fight, and he's coming back off of some sort of knee surgery. His knee was fucked up, if my memory is correct. If that is the case, obviously the advantage is on the guy whose knee wasn't fucked up, who hasn't been out, who isn't just barely making his second day fight in the UFC. Veteran, always Machida, he's coming off of a win. He's got that confidence, momentum. Mousasi's coming off of basically a win over Queen Latifah in Sweden at the last minute, and it was embarrassing. It was a bum fight. This one's easy to call. Machida has everything stacked in his favor. If he loses, we're going to be having a different kind of conversation here. We're going to be talking about Machida retiring and if he threw the fight or something. So that's my prediction. Machida, easily.
Word. Yeah, we can't really discredit too much the fact that Gegard did fight a very unskilled 205er, because A, he was fighting on a knee that needed surgery, B, it was a last minute replacement. And C, I mean, dating back to him losing to Akihiro Gono at Pride Bushido 12, the dude has lost once, and he's won, I think, like 21, 22 times. 21, 1 and 1. His only loss coming to King Mo back in 2010 in Strikeforce via unanimous decision. And one of the main reasons was because Gegard was Musasi'd a point for the illegal up kick when someone gets a point deducted. I'm gonna say they got Musasi'd, and it's not even really that funny. So let's move on to the other matchups that I wanted to talk about. UFC 169, gonna see a couple title fights. Gonna see the unification of the bantamweight belt. Dominic Cruz fighting Renan Barão. Cruz returning from one of the longest layoffs, the longest title layoff in Zuffa UFC history, taking on Renan Barão, who a lot of people think is the best. He's the interim champ. And you got Jose Aldo taking on Ricardo Lamas. Ramsey, your thoughts on Cruz and Aldo? You think they're as big as favorites as everyone's saying?
Cruz, I'm sorry, like he's coming. Oh man, I have to say this right off the bat: the Cruz versus Barão match, that's gonna be a formality, people. It's gonna be a passing of the torch. Hopefully not an obvious pity party, but that's what it will be. I don't think Dominic Cruz is coming back from whatever the hell was wrong with him to beat someone who has never been defeated. Do you understand, people? It's not going to happen. All right. Jose Aldo versus Ricardo Lamas. This one's a layup fight as well. Obviously, this is going to be a night for the Brazilians. The writing is on the wall. Do not bet on anything other than someone that is fighting out of Brazil. That is it. That is the word on the street. The Ricardo Lamas and Dominic Cruz. I'm sorry that more of my brown people got to be sacrificed to the Brazilians, but it's happened. That's a civil war that we're going through here in the South America. But that's not has nothing to do with the MMA podcast. So I apologize, and I'll pass the mic off. Word.
Yeah. Barão versus Cruz, Aldo versus Lamas. Your thoughts?
Oh, sorry. I was sorry.
Doing crack?
I was actually no, I was actually laughing very hard. But I'm actually gonna be at these fights live in New Jersey. It'll be fun, you know. I don't have any opinions on the fights, but they'll be exciting, I believe, and I can't wait to see them.
Can't wait, Alan.
I hope Dominic Cruz's family has 911 or medical staff standing by because he's getting murdered, and there's nothing that anybody or anyone can do about it. Renan Barão's going to come out. He's going to leg kick Dominic Cruz 4 or 5 times until Dominic Cruz's leg snaps in half. And then Renan Barão is going to do the same thing that Jose Aldo did to the Korean Zombie, and that's jump on a wounded opponent because he's a coward, and he's going to pummel him until Dominic Cruz dies. And yeah, that's about it. As far as the other fight that goes down that night, I don't think the guy who got knocked out by a 135-pound fighter is going to beat one of the best fighters of all time. Kaboom.
Kaboom. We're saving the best for last. The intelligent Jew. What's going on?
I will also be at these fights, and I cannot wait. First of all, the odds on the fight. I think even though he's been out and Barão has kind of taken that number one spot, I truly believe he's the number one guy, and I do believe he beats Cruz, but I thought he would beat Cruz anyway, even without an injury. At the same time, Cruz is still the champion. He still has the belt, technically. He still has not lost since his only loss to Faber years and years and years ago. So you can't call him a massive, massive, massive underdog because he's still the former champion. And we've seen guys come back from injuries like this. I mean, GSP did it. GSP has won now 2 in a row coming off of his knee injury. And he beat 2 of the best in the world in Carlos Condit and Nick Diaz. So obviously he's got a tough challenge ahead of him, but I do believe he gets past Hendricks too. I think Jose Aldo is much better than Ricardo Lamas. I think his takedown defense is impeccable. I don't think Lamas will be able to take him down. Lamas can't outstrike him. And Jose Aldo's jiu-jitsu game that we haven't seen, I guarantee you it's impeccable also. So I just don't see any way that Lamas beats him. I think he would have had a better chance in Chicago only because he would have had the hometown crowd behind him. He's fighting in Newark. He's got no advantage whatsoever here. Aldo's going to end up finishing him. He's going to knock him out. If Yuri Alcantara can do it, like Alan said, Jose Aldo can do it. Dominic Cruz, on the other hand, he claims he's got his movement. He says he's just got to kind of hone up his skills and just get rid of the rust, but he's got his lateral movement and he can move around well and his footwork's good. So if that's the case, it's going to be an interesting fight. But I do believe Barao is a better striker, a better grappler. He's got great takedown defense. He's not a better wrestler than Cruz, but he's definitely got great takedown defense. So I think Barao gets it done. I think Barao finishes him. He can submit him. He can knock him out. He can leg kick him to death. One of those ways. I think Aldo and Barao, nobody now walks out with the belts.
That's it. You kind of stopped. It didn't sound like you were
That was
wrapping up a
weird, man.
sentence. Yeah.
That was straight up weird.
Did he cut out? Ross, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, it just sounded like you ended your sentence really abruptly.
I just figured we might as well stop because we're running long here. We gotta move things along. I just heard my own voice. That was weird.
You just confused the shit out of me and whoever's voice I heard also did. Let's move on to the 10 solid seconds of sports, the segment where every week I talk about all things that are not MMA, and I usually stall for a few seconds beforehand so I can get the clip ready. Let's do it. 10 solid seconds of sports. Starting now, the Boston Red Sox win the first World Series of Fenway in 96 years, their third World Series in the last decade. Chiefs stay undefeated, Bucks and Jags still winless. Florida State cruises by Miami. They're now number 2. NBA season underway. Philadelphia looking good. They beat Miami and Chicago. What the fuck? All right. This isn't something we're really going to pass around, but just a little note. Josh Barnett and Travis Brown to do UFC-sponsored voluntary third-party drug tests before UFC 168. So we'll see how that goes. Speaking of fights coming up this year, UFC 167. We're all looking forward to GSP versus Johnny Hendricks. There's this ad we've seen with the song Sleep by The Roots. It shows Johnny punching the bag, George doing all sorts of spinning shit, lights in the background flickering. Apparently Johnny Hendricks got second-degree burns on his shoulder shooting the ad. I don't know if it was from the heat. I assume it was from the heat of the lights, but there were also like little sparks and shit flying on him and stuff. I don't know. This is really fucked up to injure a fighter that the only reason you have him there is because you're shooting a promotion for the for the title fight that's gonna be millions of dollars as far as revenue and all that shit goes. Who fucked up? Should they be fired? And do you think this will affect Johnny at all during the fight? Ross?
I don't know if it's going to affect him during the fight, but it's definitely something that the UFC fucked up big time on. I mean, you're injuring your number one contender to GSP, someone who's going to headline one of your biggest cards of the year in your 20th anniversary event. That was just stupid of them. Do I think it's going to affect him? No. He's been through worse. I mean, he's fighting in a cage. I don't think he's really scared about a little sunburn.
Alan, did you actually stroke out?
I'm gonna actually go out there and say that this was not an accident, that somebody purposely did that. Somebody by the name of Alexis Natalia. It was, yes, Ramsey's Twitter girlfriend. She's on the GSP bandwagon. She also lives in California where this ad was shot.
Holy
and
shit.
She was on set. She knocked over the lights that fell and created the sparks that, burned Johnny's skin. And she was trying to sabotage Team Hendricks and Team Darkside because Johnny, is part of Team Darkside for, UFC 167. So yes, it is true. She did it, and in Vegas we will take revenge on her.
I was thinking that was a possibility because she tweeted out some picture like coffee, talking, Chael, I want to get coffee, and like I thought there were like, tipped over lights and a dude with a beard with like burns on his wow, that is totally insane. Yeah, what do you think about all this nonsense?
I don't know if anyone is to actually blame for this, but I mean, it happens, I guess, a lot of times actors get injured during, filming and stuff like that. I think Tom Cruise got blown up by a truck when he was shooting a movie or something like that. I don't know.
He's now a cyborg, yep.
Yeah, but Tom Cruise also is a Scientologist pussy.
Yeah, either way.
Random comment of the week goes to Alan. Go ahead, yeah.
But either way, I mean, George St. Pierre walks out with the belt at the end, so it doesn't matter.
You're so racist. Ramses?
Yeah, look, I wasn't there, of course, but this whole getting burned, filming commercial thing, look, it was better the first time when Michael Jackson did it. All right, Johnny Hendricks, shut the fuck up. Same shit happened when Michael Jackson was filming a Pepsi commercial in the 80s. He had so much product in his hair that it caught on fire. Literally did. He was burned all over the place. He was half melted. They put him back together. He was on painkillers for a while. That's what started the whole vicious cycle of addiction with Michael Jackson. Hopefully, but Johnny Hendricks, hopefully he's still in the early stages of his drug addiction and painkiller dependency. That's the best we can hope for. This is probably was orchestrated by the GSP camp. Maybe GSP doesn't even know about this directly himself, but I gotta say, man, he gets burned filming in a commercial, and he's gotta deal with that amount of pain. Trust me, it's my theory that we've all been burned. Every single one of us, especially if you're a man listening out there. We've all been burned in one way or another, physically, by women. Anyway, Johnny Hendricks is not going to win the fight, if that was the question. And so I'm sorry about him getting burned.
Cock sucker, we will move on. That was actually the last bit of news we have for you. Last week we broke down UFC Fight Night 31, Fight for the Troops, which is going to be this Wednesday's card. So if you want to hear us break down that, go ahead and listen back to episode 66, last week's episode, the final episode of October. Actually, I will admit I totally had a brain fart, forgot to add Bellator 106, so sorry we didn't break that down last week. But this week, we are going to be breaking down UFC Fight Night 32, Belfort versus Dan Henderson. But first and foremost, you know what time it is. Time to bring the Jew to you.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. The music hits the speakers. I make that walk, and I bring the Jew to you. What's going on, people? It is November 5th here on the East Coast, here in beautiful New York. I've got a lot of bets. There's a good card. I actually have no bets for Saturday. Saturday's card is just not bet-worthy. I didn't find anything I like, but watch Saturday's card because it's going to be awesome, and we'll break it down in a minute. But I do have bets for this Wednesday's card. First off, I got single plays. I got the winner of the Ultimate Fighter 15, Michael Chiesa, minus 160. I'm throwing some coin down on him. Francisco Rivera, minus 110. That's just like stealing candy from a baby. It's Halloween, so I'm going to use that reference. He's going to knock out George Roop. George Roop is just a horrible fighter. Chris Camozzi, Team Darkside's Chris Camozzi, plus 265. He's going to beat Lorenz Larkin. Put money on that. You're fucking stupid if you don't. Amanda Nunes, plus 100. She's going to beat Germaine de Randamie, whatever her name is. She's got more tools. She'll get it done. I got 4 props for you. Kennedy by unanimous decision, plus 210. Money in your pocket. Kabilov wins inside the distance, plus 209. That's actually hilarious, plus 209. Anyway, he's going to throw him on his head. He's going to beat up Masvidal. It's going to be brutal and bloody. Romero wins by knockout TKO. He's going to put Hani Marquez to sleep, plus 120. Look for that. Chiesa, I brought him up before. He wins by submission, plus 160. Colton Smith is a bum. Let's go to the parlays. We got 3 parlays. First, we've got a very easy parlay. Chiesa, Kabilov, and Kennedy, plus 235. Put your money on that. Kabilov wins inside the distance, and Kennedy wins by unanimous decision, plus 858. If you do not put money on that, turn this show off right now. And now, everyone's favorite, the fun parlay.
Please don't turn this show off, by the way.
I do not give a fuck on this one. And I throw it all. Kennedy,
we'll remember
Kabilov. Kennedy, Kabilov, Romero, Davis, Chiesa, Rivera, Seiler, Camozzi, Nunes, Edwards, and Brunson, plus 171,826. I'm putting $3 million on there. That's the end of the show. That's all I got to give to you today. That is the Jew, bringing the Jew to you.
That was the Jew that was just brought to you. Thank you, Ross. You can follow him on Twitter at Ross Finkelstein. And when Ross says, please turn the show off, I cannot endorse any phrases or products mentioned on Bringing the Jew to You. And I'm glad you're still listening. And we're going to talk about UFC Fight Night Belfort versus Henderson before we move out and return next week. Really quick, I'm going to go over the prelims. Flyweights, Jose Tome versus Dustin Ortiz. Lightweights, Adriano Martins and Darren Cruikshank. My boy Darren going to be looking very good in that one. And Thiago Tavares taking on Justin Salas, also a lightweight match. Middleweights, we got Thiago Perpachau versus Amari Akhmedov, and a featherweight match between Godfredo Pepe and Sam Cecilia. Let's get to the main card. Fox Sports 1, a featherweight match. Ronnie Jason taking on Jeremy Stevens. I like this match a lot. Jeremy Stevens, definitely a iron-chinned guy in 30 fights. He's only been stopped with strikes once, and that was to Yves Edwards late last year. What do you guys think about both guys? Obviously, Stevens has a little bit more experience, but a lot of people are on that Hani Jason hype train. I won't set a certain order. If you have something to say about the fight, say it. If not, keep your peace till we move on to the next one.
Well, hold on. I will say something, I guess. This fight is interesting. Like, I do want to watch it. I know it's going to be a damn good one. Somebody's going to get fucked up, pardon my language. But I just don't really care about either fighter enough to even have thought of like an analysis. You know what I mean? I just want to see this one. People just want to see this happen. What happens when a bear fights a tiger? That sort of thing. 2 tigers. Yeah.
Anyone else? Hani Jason, Jeremy Stevens.
I'll go out there. Yeah, Hani Jason. I've watched all of his fights since the Ultimate Fighter Brazil. He's been very impressive, very tough, tenacious guy. He's very well rounded. I think his submission game is really good. I just think he wants it, man. The type of emotion that he shows whenever he fights, it's crazy to watch him. He's got such a following. He had a following whenever he entered the show, and whenever he, I think it was his last fight that he won, the entire crowd just went nuts whenever he started coming out. It was almost, it was like Conor McGregor in Boston, man. The type of backing that he has in Brazil. So yeah, I definitely think the hype train behind him is really good, and I think the 2 or 3 fights that he's had in the UFC have. They've been really impressive, and I see him win, and that's really on those fights. That's the only ones that I'm excited for.
Word up. Yeah, Ross, you got anything on Jason versus Stevens?
It's a fun fight. Very fun fight. I think Hani Jason wins. I think he submits Jeremy Stevens, but it'll be back and forth. It'll be beautiful. It'll be fun to watch. I'm looking forward to it.
Word up. Let's we're actually gonna skip this next fight because they're not really that notable of people. Santiago Ponzinibbio from Tough Brazil 2 taking on Ryan LaFleur. Maybe the winner. Wait, Ross has something to say about Ryan LaFleur. Ross?
Of course I got something to say about Ryan LaFleur. We're trying to pass over a guy who we need to give a little more notoriety. We've got Ryan LaFleur. He's 8-0. He's at a Belmore Kickboxing Academy. Long Island MMA. He's going to represent. He's going to beat this bum. It's not going to even look pretty. It's going to be amazing. Ryan LaFleur. He's going to get it done.
Ryan LaFleur, coming from New York, another up-and-coming welterweight, coming from my neck of the woods, coming from Colorado, looked impressive as shit in his UFC, in his first fight in the UFC back in August against Justin Edwards. I'm talking about Brandon Thatch, hailing out of Denver, Colorado, 6'2", with a whole lot of punishment behind both of those fists and those kicks too. He is a refined kickboxer, working on his grappling too. 10-1 on a 9-fight winning streak. The dude is smashing everybody, and Paulo Thiago is going to be a very good test. Ross, I know you're also big on Brandon Thatch. What do you think about this fight?
Oh, this fight gives me goosebumps thinking about it. I've been waiting for Brandon Thatcher's next fight in the UFC since his last fight in the UFC, which was only just a few months ago. It was like 2 months ago. This guy is incredible. He's trained with GSP. He's trained with a whole bunch of guys. He's been up at TriStar. He's been at Jackson's. He's been all over the place. He's so dynamic. He's such a great striker. He throws from all different angles. He's got a very unorthodox style. He's actually relatively well-rounded, and he's going to be a big problem in the welterweight division. He's long, he's lanky, he's 6'2", like you mentioned, and he's got a tremendous amount of power. He throws every punch with bad intentions, and Paulo Thiago is just a matchup that's tailor-made for Brandon Thatch. Brandon Thatch is going to knock him out. Brandon Thatch is fighting someone who has a relatively suspect chin, and just his skills have diminished Paulo Thiago's, so Brandon Thatch is going to get it done. He's going to finish him with ease. Brandon Thatch all the way.
Ross is also big on my boy, Brandon Thatch. Does anyone else have thoughts on Paulo Thiago versus Brandon Thatch?
Yeah, I'm really excited. I didn't know who Brandon Thatch was until I saw his last fight, and holy shit, yeah, he is huge, but he blew me away. I want to see him win because I want to see him match up with another particular, kind of a guy on the same level as him that's also on a little streak. I think they match up really well in size because they're both huge welterweights, and that's Hyung Gyu Lim. I'd love to see Brandon Thatch versus Hyung Gyu Lim as, on a main card somewhere down the line. So I got to see Brandon Thatch win in order to see that later on.
A couple of big boys at welterweight. Ramsey Siao, any thoughts on Brandon Thatch versus Thiago?
Yeah, I got something.
What was that? What was that? Yeah, I didn't hear anything.
No,
Are you near a ship or something, Yao? I don't understand what the fuck's going on.
Is this for her?
Yeah, did you guys hear me?
Yeah, it means that Yao's ship is sunk and that he's going down.
Go ahead, Yao.
Yeah, I just want to say that the UFC is just throwing Brandon Thatch a bum. They just want to build him. He's a prospect, so they don't want to cut off a prospect. They want to give him, somebody he can beat. Just keep building him up. But yeah, that's all I want to say.
All right, actually, I thought you were gonna start trashing Thatch like you did in the Skype chat, so I started blaring you out with the ship horn for all the people who are listening and have no idea what the fuck's going on. Ramses, thoughts? Thatch, Thiago?
Yeah, up until now, I thought you were just making up two names just to see if our stupid asses would just try to offer up some sort of smart comment on these fighters. Are these people real? I guess these guys are real fighters, but I've never heard of either of them, and that's all I have to say. So good luck to both of them. I hope one of them, just does something real fucked up and like fucks up the other one so bad everybody's like, oh man, it's fucked up, and he gets respect or some sort of name recognition. And I hope I know who you are next time. That's it.
That's right. The cruise boat horn is my new sign of disapproval. Let's move on to actually the co-main event. Or nope, sorry, this is the co-main event. Rafael Cavalcante fighting Igor Pekrajak. Igor Pokerjack, as we enjoy calling him. Cavalcante had that vicious first round KO against Thiago Silva. We all thought he would have a chance against him. He really didn't. Still the only real notable win the guy has is his win against King Mo, like in August 2010. Since then, he's lost to Dan Henderson, beat Yoel Romero, a no contest to Mike Kyle when he failed that post-fight drug test, and then losing to Thiago Silva. And Po Kryak really has not had much luck recently either. He's has not gotten a win in his last 3 fights. He lost to Vinny Magalhaes and Ryan Jimmo. He also lost via decision to Joey Beltran. It was overturned to a no contest after Joey tested positive for banned substances. This is a fight that I think a lot of people are going to write off. Namely, 2 people on our show are going to write off as a bum fight. The loser of this could very well be cut, is not in a good spot. But I really think the winner, you have a lot of random names floating around 205, and whoever wins this, I honestly could see putting, not a title run. I don't see either guy cracking the top 10, but maybe enough to, stick around the UFC for a while. Cavalcante, Pekrajak, what do y'all think?
Can I weigh in first before anybody else? I'm sorry, Ross. I'm sorry.
No. Please. I would love for you to... I want you to go first. I need to hear the word on the street.
Okay. It will be brief. Look, Pekrajak, Igor, look, this is just what I've heard, and I'm giving you here a stock tip here. All right? This is like GTA 5 online shit before it comes out. All right, Igor Pekrajak actually just signed a 4-fight deal with the UFC. What that tells me is that they're going to give this fight to him, all right, people? It looks like the UFC is going to look to expand into Russia next year. They need a couple Russian fighters. Igor Pekrajak, he just got signed on a 4-fight deal despite losing to Vinny and, what was it, Ryan Jimmo or whatever the fuck it was. So that should tell you all you need to know. This is a hot tip. Bet on this fight. Igor is going to win. I won't call it the 4-letter word, but just bet on this fight for Igor. Word on the street.
Word on the street, Ross.
You said it's not to hate on it or something to that effect, and it's very difficult because Fei Zhao was so disappointing in his last fight. To get knocked out by Thiago Silva after practically beating him for 2 minutes and then just gassing and getting knocked out that way, it was pathetic. If he comes in with his cardio in check, he should win this fight. He's actually a very solid fighter with just tremendous finishing ability. I don't think any fights he's had have gone to a decision. I think he's finished every single fight he's won, and I think every single fight he's lost, he's been either knocked out or submitted or something. So he's a very, very solid fighter. He's a former Strikeforce light heavyweight champion. I think with the right training and the right cardio, he comes into this fight and he beats the crap out of Igor Pekrajak. But if he comes in the same way, looking the same that he did against Thiago Silva, it's going to be a very, very rough night for Fei Zhao after 2 minutes when he gets knocked out by Igor Pokerjack.
Alan, yeah.
The Duke. His nickname is the Duke. I'm gonna have to be honest. Igor has looked good at times in the UFC, strung together 3 fights in a row. He's beaten some decent guys. He's lost to some other guys. But the telling tale is the last couple of fights he's been involved in just have really been blah. Ever since his win over Maldonado, he hasn't looked the same. He hadn't been aggressive. I don't know what's wrong. It just looks like something's missing. So I don't know. Maybe signing this new contract that Ramses is speaking of, that maybe that might have lit a fire underneath him. But I really hope he does something, and something happens for him good, because I'd like to see him succeed. He's put on some good fights, put on some wars in the UFC. Fejao, yeah, he bum status, nothing else.
Bum status, yeah.
Yeah, this fight should be okay. It won't be as bad as I thought it was going to be at first. Now that I know that Igor signed a new 4-fight deal, that should be exciting. But other than that, this fight will just be sort of a appetizer for the main event. So that's what I'm looking at it as.
Props, Yao. I had my finger on the cruise ship horn button, and you didn't make me press it. Let's move to the actual co-main event, a middleweight fight that we were supposed to see back at UFC 147 as the Tough Brazil middleweight tournament finale. It was going to be Cesar Ferreira against Daniel Sarafian. Sarafian got injured. Ferreira fought Sergio Moraes, who lost to Sarafian in the semifinals. Ferreira won. He then went on to beat Thiago Santos via first round submission at UFC 163 back in August. He's 2-0 in the UFC since coming back from his injury. Sarafian lost a split decision to the neutralizer CB Dalloway, who has my favorite nickname in mixed martial arts. CB put that blow up Dalloway, and he beat Eddie Mendez back in June via first round arm triangle choke. They're both coming off first round submission victories. They were supposed to fight for the Tough Brazil belt, and now we're finally seeing them fight. Who do you have in this? I actually have not checked out the odds and don't even know who the favorite is, even though I guess it likely be Cesar. What do y'all think about this, Ross?
Well, first off, the favorite is Caesar. Caesar, he's looked better, and he actually has been training with Vitor Belfort. Vitor Belfort is like his mentor, and he's his prodigy. He looked very Vitor-esque in his last fight, just with his walkout, his attire, his choice of attire,
his
and
aura, his machismo.
He had the Vitor machismo, the Vitor
testosterone.
Aura. His aura levels were on some prime 2013 Vitor Belfort spinning back kick to your bitch's face type shit.
Shout out
I think
Bloodstained Lane.
Caesar. Shout out to Bloodstained Lane. You are the greatest man alive. I think Caesar wins this fight. Mutante wins this fight. Sarafian is a 170-pound fighter, maybe even a 155-pound fighter. He's in over his head. He's in the wrong weight class, and I think Mutante gets it done.
That's right. Shout out to Bloodstained Lane, a.k.a. Spear Ya Bitch Harder Than Bill Goldberg. Alan Ramsey, Siao, what do you think about Ferreira versus Mutante?
The only hope that Sarafian has to win this fight is he has an enormous heart. And, like Ross said, he is a 170-pound guy. I watched him on the first season or the second season, whichever it was. I don't remember, but he's just too small. He's like 5'8". He needs to cut some weight, drop some muscle mass. He got beat by Dalloway. It was a close fight of the night, whatever. But Mutante is just physically gifted, and the training partners that he has, it's just going to be too much. He's just a more well put together fighter, and it's going to be a dog fight, and somebody's going to get knocked the fuck out, and I think it's going to be Sarafian.
I have to agree, man. I have to agree, Alan. Like, whoever has the most Brazilian blood is going to win, and so sorry, Sarafian. It's over. That's it.
It's all over. Yeah. Save the very best for last. White Pride.
Yeah, this is a fight that I'm actually looking forward to a lot. Cesar Montante, training with the Black Zillions, like Vitor Belfort, he's like a mentor to him. He took him in, brought him to the camp with Rashad and Tyrone Spong and, all those guys down there. Eddie Alvarez, our new Bellator lightweight champion. He's going to go out Saturday, and he's going to destroy this kid. He's just on another level. And even the training partners that he has are on another level. So this is going to be a great fight. If you miss any fight on this night, don't miss this one.
That's right. Actually, if you were to say that about any fight, I would assume it would be about the main event, Vitor versus Dan. We are going to break that down first. But of course, it would be a little remiss if we didn't bring you a stat of the day. Let's do tonight's stat of the day while I stall and bring up the clip. There it is.
Stat of the day! Stat of the day! Stat of the day! Stat of the day! Here comes the stat of the day!
Vitor and Dan Henderson are two of the most deadly strikers in MMA history and excel in avoiding damage as well as they give it out. Between the two men, they've finished 29 fights while only losing 3 via KO or TKO. That's your stat of the day.
Stat of the day! Stat of the day! Stat of the day! Stat of the day! Here comes the stat of the day!
We all know the H-bomb, but Vitor has been looking like a motherfucker all year. The dude, seems since, he lost to John Jones, he's been absolutely unstoppable, defeating Michael Bisping and Luke Rockhold. And if he defeats Dan just as heartily, he very well could be the 2013 Fighter of the Year. Both of those KOs against Bisping, the head kick, Luke Rockhold, the spinning heel kick. I would not want to be Dan now, but at the same time, I wouldn't want to be Vitor either, because that right hand that Dan has is maybe the most powerful punch in mixed martial arts. It's certainly the last punch, that along with Johnny's left, the last 2 punches I want to be blasted with. Vitor coming off 2 wins, Dan coming off 2 split decision losses. I'll start it off with Yao. I know you're a big fan of Vitor and the Black Zillions. What do you see going down in this fight?
Yeah, I'm definitely going for Vitor Belfort in this fight. I believe he's faster, stronger, more agile, quicker, everything. But what is really going to come down to, for me, what I believe, is smarts. And I think Vitor is a smarter fighter. And, that's what a lot of the fights, when you get to a really high level, that's what fights come down to, smarts. You don't have to be the strongest, the fastest. Those are attributes and they help, but it's all about how you put together your game. And I believe that Vitor is going to put his game together better than Dan Henderson, Black Zillions.
Black Zillions, you heard it here first, Ramses?
Yeah, this fight, man. I wish I didn't have to say this, but it's pretty easy to figure out here. Obviously, the UFC, Dan Henderson, he's got 1 fight left on his contract. Supposedly, that's what I've heard. The UFC does want him to just beat the shit out of Vitor, humiliate him. That's what they want. That would be the optimal outcome here in this fight. Unfortunately, realistically, it's going to come down to whoever is the best on the juice. All right? And that's going to be Vitor, given prior evidence, and just look at the motherfucker. I'm sorry. The juice is loose on Vitor. He's got it down to a science. Dan Henderson, man, he doesn't even know what the fuck anymore. He's just like, just give me another guy. Whatever the fuck. I don't give a fuck. He's Dan Henderson, all right? Vitor's still hungry. Dan Henderson, he's eating fine. So I think we're going to see our American, one of our heroes, get, he's going to get knocked out, man. I don't see a submission coming. It's going to be a knockout. Unless he's shows up looking like he's 25 years old again. Dan Henderson is not going to do well in this fight. That's my prediction.
Cocksuckers. Alan, your boy Dan is taking on Vitor Belfort. Dan's going to be a heavy underdog. What do you think happens?
I got my money on Team Quest, Team Hendo, Team Darkside. He's been training with the man. He's been training with Chael Sonnen. He's been training with Ryo Chonin. He's been training with some of the old school dogs that he started out his career with. And he's getting back to what made him Dan Henderson. I think that H-bomb is going to get dropped on Mr. TRT himself. There's one thing using TRT, there's one thing abusing TRT, and that's all Vitor does, because we all know he's been hopped up on steroids his whole career. I think that Vitor is going to unleash a wild fury, and Dan is going to take advantage and pop Vitor on the chin, and it's going to be lights out. It's going to be quick, and don't blink or you might miss it.
Last but not least, E before the L, Ross Finkelstein, Belfort versus Henderson.
I'm going to break it down for you all. All right. Listen up. Vitor Belfort is on some horse semen. It's imported from somewhere in Europe. No one knows the exact location right now, but it is the highest quality, highest potency you can find of horse semen in the world. It drives his testosterone levels through the roof to the point where it actually doesn't show up on a test. I know, it's crazy. It's crazy that you hear this from me, not Ramsey's.
I believe
Dan Henderson has gotten a hold of some of this famous horse semen from Europe. Dan Henderson has been using this horse semen. He's been training very hard. And he has been confidently saying in the media that he is going to beat the shit out of Vitor Belfort. And normally it sounds preposterous. The old man's going to beat Vitor. Oh, Vitor's on his horse semen. He can't beat him. Hendo's got horse semen. Hendo's got horse semen. Hendo's got a right hand. And on Saturday night, Hendo is going to knock out Vitor Belfort for you, for me, and for horse semen.
For you, for me, and for horse semen, and that's how every episode should end. Thank you so much for tuning in to the MMA podcast. We had a pretty long ep tonight, a little over 2 hours. We had Michelle Ould talk about all things from race relations to Miesha Tate and Brian Caraway. We talked about Bellator 106. We got to still pass it around one last time. Get all the Twitter handles out there, all the good stuff. I'm looking up. Alright, so MMA Mental at J _ Jeans, Sweet Pappy Jones, C Lowenstein. Follow all those motherfuckers. Alan, where do we find you on Twitter?
You can catch me on Twitter and on Instagram. I am the Westland Eagle, AH Alpha Hotel.
Bazinga. Ross, where do we find you?
If you want to find the Jew on Twitter, you can go to the Twitters. You can search on the Twitters at Ross Finkelstein. Search for the Jew. Search for me. I'm making t-shirts. I'm making posters. I'm making your life better. And I'm spreading the word about Vitor Belfort's horse semen usage. Thank you, everybody. E before the L at Ross Finkelstein. Good night.
Good night. Yao, where do we find you?
You can find me on Twitter and just Twitter at Yao _ the truth. That's YAO _ the truth. I'm fighting for New Jersey Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation on Sunday. That's in 5 days. Look out.
Don't try and Don't try and follow this fool on the Instagrams. Jesus Christ, fucking messing up everything tonight. Coming straight from Queets, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, coming from Austin, Texas, we got Ramsey's the word on the street. Where do we find you?
You'll find me on the streets of Queets, but if you want to follow me on Twitter and see all my tweets, the Aunt Jimmy Show on Twitter, #Queets, bitches.
#Queets, #word on the Queets. Thank you for tuning in. It's been fun. We'll be back next week with Aljamain Sterling, a fighter coming out of not Queets, but a different part of New York. We really appreciate all of the support. Follow us at the MMA Podcast. Visit themmapodcast.com. Up there at the top, you can get our links for our iTunes and our YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe. We throw it up on there just a few hours after every show, and every show is Monday night around 11:30 to midnight Eastern. It sort of floats around, but if you're around that time of night, if you're up, catch a little bit of live MMA podcast. Don't forget to tune in, call in, tweet in. We love people talking to us. Thank you so so much. We'll see you next week. This is the MMA Podcast. We gone.
Short and precise, man. Back in the day when I was learning to rock in this mic, paying homage to the classic shit. Dilated, undisputed heavyweights repping Los Angeles. And yeah, I do this for the 213. Historical flip down, you know I'm with that G. So fire in the hole, slick with the flow. High caliber weapons is here to shatter the fucking mold. Come on.